There's a really special breeze happening, which is coming from the east, and that means that my dream of sailing around Alcatraz could actually happen today. So I'm gonna just take some baby steps towards that by raising probably a 3/4 sail on my balanced lug, really simple sails, Goat Island skiff rig, and see how that feels, and probably try to ride this east wind all the way to Treasure Island and think about the plan for the rest of the day. Yesterday around 10 a.m. I saw an opportunity on the weather to get out here, and also on my calendar, because my next commitment is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Started busting ass to get out on the water and try out camping on the first mod, first time. And it went well. I was super comfortable. I was definitely warm enough in my custom-made bed, modified Teton outfitter cot, modified it, replaced the aluminum frame with the carbon frame for my boat. That all worked real well. My tent worked well until this morning when the wind picked up. The prototype seams that were made with 3M 77s started ripping apart, and they're gonna need to be sewn. No surprise there, but I ripped down the tent, and now, as you can see, I'm just like sitting in mud at low tide. I do have my anchor out. It is taut, preventing me from slipping further backwards. There's the tent. It's pretty cool. It bundles down to something that I can store right in with the oars. And on this side, you can see that my camp bed has been lashed. It's a good feeling being out here. Not too cold, it's about 50 degrees. I can have a bike towed, dinghy cruising system with not that much more gear than what I use for day sailing. I got a full food bag. I made myself coffee with a jet boil here for the first time today. Last night I arrived at the hoist half an hour before sunset. I was out here finally eating some food around 10:30. It's an encouraging thing to actually try out this prototype boom tent, and I'm gonna stick with it. Boat's sound good. First mod underway. Earliest I've ever begun sailing. The sail set looks beautiful. Look at that, no creases, that's great. I'm approaching my first stop, which is Treasure Island. I'm gonna get some lunch in me and then make my decision. It was an easy decision. I really wanted to do it. There was a slight thought that maybe it was the wrong day because I was gonna have to head out into a peak flood, but I really wanted to do it, and I thought I was starting early enough, so I committed and began the work. I didn't even eat food at Treasure Island. I just put a bag near me, which limited me to fruit. As soon as I left Treasure Island, the wind was back to its normal western pattern. So if you're looking at the Golden Gate Bridge from this angle, that means you're in the slot, and that's where the west wind is the strongest. So I've now done a zig, a zag, and another zig, and I'm about to do my second zag. I am sailing at peak flood. This is peak flood, and this is the main channel of San Francisco Bay where the flood is actually like a big tidal river. And it was at 2 knots that day at the peak. Congrats to 2 or 3 major tacks away. Man, what a beautiful yacht. Classic. Like a 60-footer, 70-footer. A quick interpretation of this boat was that it was up to 70 feet long. But then later, after analyzing the footage and the speeds and trying to use Google Maps to estimate actual speed, I think this boat was actually going around 16 knots, which is amazing, and that might put its hull as big as over 100, like 150 feet. Get some lunch finally. Each of these tacks is taking me 20-30 minutes to do. I'm trying to go way back towards the city, way back towards Angel Island, because my actual tacks are kind of slow and cumbersome, so I'm figuring that a long straight line is probably the best way for me to get west. Seas were predictable, wind was predictable. The biggest challenge was the tide. So this buoy that I am just passing on the starboard side, I was hoping to pass it on the port side, but the tide is pushing me back, heading towards the east side of Angel Island here. My goal is to get further and further west. So I've barely gotten west, but I'm doing the work, and this is what I kind of thought I was signing up for.
All right, we're at Max right now.
Now what that means is that this mission is about to get easier, easier, and easier. Because my chaps are not going to be against a conveyor belt of water to the same degree. Trying to take a wind reading. The only time I took a reading was when things were relatively calm.
14 knots apparent wind.
So that means the actual gusts were probably 3 or 4 knots higher. The boat's doing great in these conditions. The whole point of the build was to try to make a boat that was as big as possible, as safe as possible, while still being bicycle mobile. With the first mod, I pushed the bikeability to its limit and gained seaworthiness in return. I chose to build a scaled-up Ross Lily Stone first mate, coming in at 17 feet length overall, 68-inch wide, with this nice deck, and the deck was really what settled me on this design. Alright, I just want you to know that I find this next part pretty funny as well, so if you have a laugh, that's okay with me. Here's my next tack. Now let's take a look at the balanced lug rig in action. Look at that upper spar, it's called the yard. And when there's gusts, it twists before the boom. So it twists before I even really feel much extra force on the sheet. This is a good thing. Makes the balanced lug a forgiving rig to sail. Now taking off for another tack towards San Francisco during this flood tide. Take a look at the shape of Angel Island, how it goes down, down, down from the mountain, and then it rises up at the end. That thing is called Point Blunt. And now you'll see that Point Blunt is starting to obscure the Golden Gate Bridge, and it ends up right between the two towers of the Golden Gate Bridge. What you can do with that is later on come into Google Maps and actually pinpoint your location. I was able to use this type of information to analyze my boat speed, which worked out to 5.1 knots, and that compares pretty well to the theoretical hull speed of my 17-foot first mate, which would have been 5.7 knots. And if I want to get that extra half a knot, I'm going to have to change the way I steer. See how I'm pushing the tiller away during the gust? That needs to be replaced by more action on the sheet so that I keep my vector, keep my speed. Here my left leg kicks out the hiking strap. I don't even notice because I'm not using the strap all the time. I use it only here and there to pull my weight back in when a gust dies. So I'm sailing along without realizing that it's not there for me. I'm not really used to using it. It's very new. I like it, but I'm not like dependent on it. There's a half decent tack for you. Still pretty slow. I mean, I don't carry a lot of speed into the new vector. But at least I wasn't bumbling around as much. So now the wind's picking up, stuff's kind of flying around, and I finally notice that the hiking strap is gone, and I go to put it back in. But it has too much tension. Here's a closer look at the custom work. There's a socket that accepts the front anchor, and then there's a bracket glued to the stern sheets that accepts the aft one. And this system also allows for a nice rowing block for extended rowing. Well, I figure out the strap tension and reinstall the forward anchor, put my body into the cam strap, and this time it doesn't come undone. And to finish out a tack, I flip the auto bailers, closing the uphill one and opening the downhill one.
It's a little bit too close for my tastes. I noticed there's some weird action over there in the water. It looks like some rocks that are the last thing I'd want to hit. So I'm going to do one more tack. Take my time and enjoy this day. I've now seen a seal and 3 porpoises, boats that are out. Just getting honked at, I think, by this massive boat. And it stopped honking, so must have been me. And now I'm on a better track to give Alcatraz a wider berth. Safety first. Passing the rock after 8 years of sailing in San Francisco Bay. Always wanted to do this. Finally picked the right day for it. Sea's got a little bit choppy right around here. There must be some stuff underneath me that I can't see right now. Some big rocks. I think I'm gonna take a little bit of a respite in Aquatic Park, maybe eat some hot soup. That was close. This is often the time that I get to the water in the summertime when I want to go for a pleasure sail. Watch for swimmers.
Really gonna dry my feet off. Put some socks on. Watch for swimmers. Watch for swimmers, y'all. Now I'm on the run home, and all of my hard work earlier in the day is just getting undone in a matter of probably 1/5 of the time or 1/10 of the time. It's amazing. I put in a double reef just to have a more chill experience. Good boat speed. Good weir performance. saw a buoy in the water, came over to check it out, see if it was someone's fishing gear. That's trash. Let's go get it.
Yep, we're going for it. I think I normally want it on the windward side. Just gotta come up on it. This is not fishing gear. Yep. Got it! 3 for 6 is pretty good. There were 3 other pieces of trash that I went for, but
I also wanted to show the latest, what it's really like getting home from the water with, these days, an electric folding bike. So I started out the project doing a folding bike to the water. These days I'm almost always using the electric because the weight has gone up. I've stopped trying to make it ultralight. It is now simply light. It's 350 pounds minimum these days, and coming back from the Alcatraz trip would have been 400 pounds. Everything's wet because I just got off the water, so that's an extra few pounds right there. You got to be in the lane. Situations like this, you can't be like riding over from the right because eventually you need to get to the left, so that means taking the lane at least some of the time. And as I've mentioned before, biking with a dinghy is great practice for taking the lane because you got nothing else that you can do. People are passing me and it's mostly peaceful. I'm able to take the lane. I'm able to go 14 if I want to go 14, 18. Maximum speed probably 20 miles an hour on the flats, 22. The only hill is crossing the freeway and crossing the train tracks.
That looks like stressful. That's not like anything. Once you get it down, you get it down.
check this out. Towing up to the pedestrian bridge here. Hello. Now this is actually a pretty sizable hill. I'm pretty grateful for the boost that I'm getting from my electric system. Now see, I'm using 500 plus watts there, 550, 540, and I'm climbing up the hill at 7 miles an hour. It's pretty great. I'm pedaling hard, you know, as hard as I can with one hand. If it wasn't for the motor, I'd be toast though. How many of these drivers are wondering what the hell is going on the overpass right now? Okay, now here's the downhill, and it's pretty steep. So I'm about to do one of the magic tricks of the GMAX system here. Look at the wattage number go negative. That minus 280 is actually regenerative braking happening right now. It is slowing me down to a crawl. This is like too slow, so I'm gonna let it off. Accelerate a little bit, and I'll hit it again and feather it like this. Let this cyclist go. Get real wide here. I have full control and I'm not using any actual braking. I'm using only regenerative braking. This is state of the art. This is what the Tesla has. This is what the Prius has. I have it because I'm using the GMAX system from ebikes.ca, which is one of the products that Rock the Bike reps actually. What an adventure it's been. 24 hours on my boat and rounding Alcatraz. I hope you've enjoyed the footage that I've been able to grab, and I will see you on the next video. Signing out. Paul Friedman, Fossil Fool. Till next time.